have some non-success stories. If the success stories didn't happen,
I'll share. I have a student that I've been working with virtually now for almost 2 years. And she is at this point is not going to return back to school anytime soon because of medical issues. And her parents have built a whole team around her virtually. Some from people that she was familiar with in the past. And some are all brand new people that we've gotten connected to through various sources. And, where last year it seemed a bit hodgepodgey, this year it's really gelling. And we've had virtual team meetings. So we have people from East Coast to West Coast that are on this team. We have started to do some virtual online planning together and kind of tracking each other's sessions so that we can, whatever the literacy person's working on, those of us that are working on other things can carry over. So it's just been it's one of those things that's come together. And last week it just really seemed to gel while we had a meeting. And there we were with a math teacher, a general ed math teacher, not special ed, no training and access, with a kid that uses eye gaze and all kinds of alternative pencils and everything like that. And the math teacher was talking about communication and how she was using communication and what kinds of things were working and what kinds of things that she could reinforce for the speech language pathologist. And it was really it was an exceptional hour to hear it. We didn't accomplish in that hour what I thought we were going to, but the discussion that happened around this student, she's a 5th grader, was really exciting to see that this could all happen with general ed and special ed and therapies and people that come in the home and people that are just virtual, and really get us all on the same page to move this kid forward. So that was pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those positives that has carried forward from this COVID era is, the idea that you don't have to just rely on the people that are in your geographical area for supporting, whether it's single student or doing training, being able to do that, like, let's find the best people to do this. Doesn't really matter where they are. Like, let's just find the people we need to do this specific thing.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's great when you see the team come together. Like, it's one thing to be like, yeah, I'll help. There's, 8 or 10 people, but like when you see it really working, when you see the gel or, just in general, it working positively for people.
We started out in little steps, like we're just the people that were focused on literacy met together and the people that were focused on communication. But this meeting last week, we had the social studies science teacher who's general ed in as well. And it just really, it was a nice coming together and focus on things like comprehension, communication, and how that intertwines everything that we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I had a question for people as to whether they had seen this that just popped out via email. It is Tobii Dynavox, it is eye control, and it is iPad.
I saw it this morning. Yeah.
I was like, well, this is a little interesting. And it has the same like partner window that their i13 and 16s have. I was intrigued.
Yeah. The question I have is, can you use any communication app or does it have to be theirs?
So I think it'll probably be like any other device where, yes, it comes preloaded with a specific software, but you can pay that unlock fee that you can typically pay after, which would then open it up to be any device. Because it says it's medically certified eye control, which would then equal like, because it sells itself on like, then you can enjoy all the social media games and entertainment apps. So
And
that
it wasn't clear as to which communication app necessarily until I saw the
yeah.
video, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
what they're saying is they've developed this TD Talk
okay.
app, which is text to speech, like quick messages, and then including TD Snap, the normal app, and then they have this new companion app, TD Copilot, which is, you know, the technical end of calibration and battery status and stuff. So I don't know what it says. It's a companion app to TD Pilot, but nowhere does it explain what TD Pilot is. It's very interesting. Like they have Copilot.
This
The
eye
TD
gaze
Pilot itself is called the TD Pilot, maybe.
the devices that is TD Pilot.
This scenario is the TD Pilot. Then there's the Copilot app,
which
I think they're creative.
Yeah.
Which helps to access. So, I mean, I would assume that yes, they're going to preload it with TD Snap because it's their device, but that you would be able to like unlock it after the fact to put together. But yeah, so I was curious and didn't know what people's, because I've tried the other eye tracking software. I'm not going to call it eye gaze on iPads. I don't know, Kelly, what the technical other term for it is, but like I've tried it and haven't found much success.
Yeah, I refer to it as eye tracking too. It's not really to meet it. What I'm always looking for though is that if they have, and I couldn't see it in that article, if they have the heat mapping availability.
I'm pulling up the whole manual now because that was going to be one of my other questions, is somewhere in Copilot or whatever they're calling that accessory app, does it have the same feature of and I mean, I don't see that it does. I mean, it just, and here's, yeah, it says configuring the iPad for gaze settings. So they're using assistive touch to drive it.
That's what T-Box uses.
Yeah. So it's really using the assistive touch, the little dot menu to drive the dwell control and all of that stuff. So it's not eye gaze bar controlled, which makes me think, Kelly, that it won't have.
Yeah, because not that I can remember, I don't think you can get heat mapping in any of the T-Box apps.
Yeah.
Like Predictable or any of those.
Yeah, I mean, it has a track status. So the typical Tobii Dynavox track status box is there. But in the menu, it has a calibration point option. But everything else is based in assistive touch. So nothing in the manual talks about having that component of, but they already have the software. It's crazy that they can't make that an app, but I guess not. I'm always curious when those things come out.
Does it talk about battery life at all? Because I would be curious. I'm assuming that the partner window and the eye tracking are all powered off of the iPad.
Well, it's got a separate battery. So that was one of my first questions. I was confused because if you look at the accessories, there's this other charger, and this is absolutely not a, Apple charger. So I guess it either pilots, it charges the case, and then there's the other connections that go to it. So, and then there's this other TD Pilot battery, which is, I'm guessing, what that charger goes to. So I'm guessing that's running the camera, but not, and maybe it's also running the iPad itself.
Now that
No.
that pilot battery looks like wheelchair attachable.
Yeah. So it was a little confusing. Like, there's a mount plate for the back of that iPad, but it's a spare battery. So like that tells me that there's another battery on the back of,
Probably where the speaker is.
yeah, on the back of the, let me go back to the overview. Back here.
Oh.
See this like piece back here? That makes me feel like this is battery.
And is it running that second display?
There are many questions I have.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, because it looks like it probably is running this in the second display, and then given that they have those little connectors, like this connection cable connects the iPad to the Pilot base. So I'm wondering if it also is powering it off of that. I don't know. I saw it and I was like, I'm gonna ask if anybody's actually seen it in the wild live.
No, I got a look last week at the new case from Logan. Kind of there now, since AMDI is totally gone and we don't have the eye adapter anymore. So they're looking to, and I guess their first model out that they announced is already undergoing changes to the size of the battery. The battery is pretty slim. I mean, it looks maybe the size of a phone.
When did AMDI go? Sorry, when did AMDI go?
AMDI has slowly been going away and now it's totally gone.
Okay.
Did anybody take
And then
ownership
there's
of all
also
of their?
rumors that the chat wrap is not going to be made anymore. So the options for battery speakered, speakers to attach to iPads to boost the volume is low.
Yeah.
With battery operated ones. I mean, there's still the one from AbleNet and the one from Attainment, but that's kind of sound buffering within the case rather
Right.
than an additional speaker attached to the case.
Did anybody take ownership of all of AMDI's stuff, or did it just disappear? Like,
Yeah, not that I've heard of.
the whole tech scan, everything that they produced.
I mean, usually it's usually AbleNet that buys out those things, but I'm not seeing anything acquired because AbleNet's got a lot of things that duplicate what AMDI did.
Very interesting. I don't like it when our options get less and less and less for things. That makes me worry in our little pocket of the industry that having options is not a bad thing, and it worries me when we lose them.
I was just able to download the Chubby Dynavox Copilot to my iPad, and it does look just like the eye tracking. I mean, obviously it's not connecting to anything because they don't have a tracker connected, but it looks a lot like what they have for their other products. the different calibration points and things like that. You can also download the Tobii Dynavox TD Talk. Both are free.
Hello.
And it speaks.
So it's your basic type, talk, text to speech.
Looks like it's got word prediction in it too, and it looks like there are places at the top for maybe some pre-programmed phrases and things as well.
Oh, it looks like some of the layouts from Communicator. A lot of the Communicator software that was in the Tobii products have those alphabetic layouts and word prediction.
I could get my hover cam up from going, but like I don't think like the keyboard's small. You know, I find a lot of people with eye tracking really have a hard time, and this is a 10-inch iPad. You know, it might be a little bit different on an iPad Pro. And I don't know, did it say, Alyssa, what size iPad that it came with? I didn't really see anything in what I glanced at.
It does in the specifications. Let me get back there real quick. It is 12-inch by 10-inch by 3.5-inch is what it says the size is. And interestingly, it doesn't say like what generation iPad. Yeah, it just says iPad OS. But I mean, that case is one sized case, so I don't know. But 12 by 10 by 3.5. I can never find a ruler when I actually need one. I was trying to measure my current iPad, which is I think the same as yours, to see if it's that or if they were building it off of the Pro. I don't know. What else is going on for people in the world of assistive technology?
Jennifer, where did you download it from?
I looked for Tobii Dynavox TD Snap, and then you can select Tobii Dynavox. And then
Yeah.
I just draw the Tobii Dynavox stuff.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, everywhere it just says iPad OS. It doesn't say anything specific. And Kelly, you can also get to it if you go through their web store. It is linked on the actual like TD Talk app thing. It says it's currently unavailable to purchase as a standalone app.
Let me download them.
I mean, that's what it says on the TD Talk page.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't actually intend for it to be downloadable and oops.
Download it now, people.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know. So what else is anything else going on in the world of everyone?
Thanksgiving's next week. Days off. Yeah,
I was gonna say, are you guys off the whole week or are you guys off part of the week only?
2 days.
Just Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday?
No, we work 2 days, Monday.
Oh, you
Tuesday.
work 2 days and you're off 3. Gotcha.
I have one student that has the whole week off and another student that it's the first 2 days that we're in.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it on our calendar, but they stacked other days. So we're actually off the whole week. I have other work to do, but our school system doesn't have school.
My kids are off the whole week because Monday and Tuesday are conferences, so there's no school. But I have to work.
It's the life of being a educational professional's kid.
Well, and I work and live in 2 different states, so
Oh,
it's
that's
always a
right.
mess.
Yeah.
It gets better. Your kids grow up.
Yeah, Mike was supposed to share his list of questions with me and he never did. He said he was
I'm
gonna.
starting to wonder if he actually exists.
Oh, that's right. Like you've just had an unfortunate
Right.
I actually have seen him because the very first one of these I went to, I was sitting next to Irene and was not on my own computer. But I just think it's funny that every time I come, he's not here.
It's been several
He
weeks.
was in a meeting Friday with me, so I mean, he is around.
he does still exist.
alive. I have a question. I have 3 high school students who have significant articulation issues. One is has 2 languages, so part of the articulation is the accent, Russian accent. And they have no phonemic awareness or phonics ability, so they cannot like type the first letter of something to be able to do the word prediction. And I've been looking at to see if I can find a text, voice to text that can accommodate for the accent or the
Dysarthria, yeah.
or find almost a symbol-based something that is kind of set up like a pod book maybe, so they can pull the category quickly and then kind of flip through to find the words. That works on Windows. Because I looked at the one you suggested, Kelly, and it's
Free
iOS.
speech.
Yeah, iOS only.
Of course.
Does Grid have a page set that would, because it will run on Windows, right? That would be like categorically organized. I mean, without maybe going all the way to pod. I don't know if there's something in between.
Yeah, a lot of the Grid page sets right now are off of Core. So then you've got Core plus categories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought about just taking Podbook over to see how that would work as their dictionary. But
There was that old what was it called, Flip and Talk, but Boardmaker had this template that had all categories and then the symbol, but I don't know how that's going to transfer to writing.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be like partner assisted scribing almost if it.
It was print and communicate, if you can hear me.
There
Yeah.
you go. Good job,
Yes.
Lori.
Pat Mervine and Michelle Burke, who I worked
There you
with.
go.
There you go. And Jennifer's holding a picture of it, holding the item up. If you can,
Yeah.
you can't see it,
Yeah.
Lori.
All of the different, yeah.
Well, I can see you guys, but I really can't look at you guys.
Yeah, don't look at us while you're driving.
Good job,
Nope.
Lori.
Nope.
Print and
Scary.
communicate, I think, used to be in Boardmaker. I think they
It was a Boardmaker add-on disc. I happen to have saved it digitally. And I used to print them out in Russian. No idea if the Russian was right, but you can print 2 languages on there.
Right.
and then also, does anybody have an idea of a different way to approach it? We're trying to move away from the concept of a scribe.
Yeah.
See, this is, and it's Windows.
and it's Windows. Because, or it could be, Chromebook,
Android.
Yeah.
not Android.
No,
Chromebook.
just Windows.
Chrome, just the Chrome. Well, you could use an Android app on a Chromebook, depending
Not
on the
this
Chromebooks you
district.
have, but not those. Okay.
Not in this district.
So it'd either have to be web-based or Windows.
Web-based, Windows, or Google. There's a Google Chrome that we can use. It's a subset of Android.
Right.
Don't hate me, but this is what I've done for 16 years. You can program Grid to not be core. It is not a 2-hour programming system. It will take longer, but it can be done. And Grid does work on Windows, and it works on Windows with eye gaze too.
All right. Okay.
If you have somebody out there who can program for you, you can make it into an architecture that would work.
Hmm.
They got to be able to think outside the box, though.
Yeah, that might be further than the people I have who are able to help me would be willing and able to do.
I no longer have access to Grid. If I had access to Grid, I'd shoot you something, but I can't get into Grid where I am now.
It was a lot to get them to program into kiosk mode for the Surface Pro so that kids only could use them for communication.
So that's easy. You just turn kiosk mode on and off, but
It wasn't easy in our, when I'm saying it wasn't easy in our system. So but I just thought maybe somebody had another creative idea.
So Yabla is a Belgium company, so they deal with multiple languages, and they're one that, like, people might know Mind Express, that's been around for a long time, and then they've got different page sets in their AAC device. But their literacy product line is called Sprint. And I don't know, I haven't looked at this in a really long time. I've mostly done stuff on the Mind Express side, but they're pretty easy to talk with. Oh, I've got this kid who speaks, because they're already dealing with multiple languages,
Right.
Being a part of being a European company. And they run on Windows platforms.
Okay. Yeah, you just pulled them up. Thank you.
And Bart's usually at ATIA, and he's pretty easy to, I haven't heard if they're coming though. There's a fair number of manufacturers that are not coming to ATIA. And I'm
Really?
wondering, yeah, I'm wondering, especially the overseas ones.
Wonder.
So I don't know how that's going to get handled. They haven't talked about that in our advisor meetings at all. But it seems like every time I've talked to like the the people that do Smooth Talk, or what is it? Not Promethean.
Is it Praetorian?
Praetorian, thank you.
Yeah.
They're not coming. Inclusive's not coming. Crick's not coming.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. Why is Crick not coming? They have an American-based sales system.
I know, but I think the last time I talked with her, she wasn't coming.
Maybe because it's in Florida.
Well, our borders were closed too until last week, so maybe a couple of them will change their minds, but I can't blame them one bit.
Yeah, Irene, that's all I can think of, right?
I just, I've been pondering on it for a while, and I came up with trying to find something that could accommodate for the dysarthria, or finding a way, that you could do a symbol lookup that didn't mean having to learn like the whole AAC device.
Right.
And so it would have to be set up more on categories. And then somebody'd have to come in periodically when he's going to do a paper and write the categories in there and make the symbols. So somebody would still have to update it, but he could use it independently.
How is the student with printing?
He can print, it's just not very clear.
Because Predictable has that hand recognition box that you can start a word and then it'll give you a word bank from. And I know that initial letter sounds are hard, but I mean, there are another, I'm trying to think of European companies that deal in multiple languages and deal in both AAC and in writing. And so T-Box has a couple of tools that way, and they've been pretty creative with their access.
Okay.
And then I guess my other question is, while we're providing that workaround intervention, is he getting any
Yes.
decoding, encoding intervention to work towards those beginning sounds? Because even if we could get letter sound correspondence enough where something like word prediction would help him.
Yes, he's still receiving services for developing his reading skills and his decoding. But this happens to be his writing class. And I think, I don't know how much our district has moved into the concept of staying and playing with words and letters and sounds beyond a certain point at elementary school.
I only ask the question because I worry about, giving up on that piece of the intervention because they are in middle or high school, not doing that working with words, making words portion of it that could give them those skills at the same time.
No. I'm hoping to start a book study on that literacy book, comprehensive literacy. I have no memory for names.
Comprehensive literacy for all.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to get the teachers, that group of teachers who have the students who are older and aren't reading or are not excelling to attend it.
If you go that route, feel free to reach out to me and I can share stuff from the Facebook group that I do that book study on. Some of the resources and prompts and other things that we have used.
That'd be great. You can just share that with me and I'd attend your book study.
I'll see if I can drop the link in the chat box.
So you said the student has very dysarthric speech?
Well, there's actually 3 students. So the level of dysarthria is varied, but this particular student, it comes from a Russian home, so that's first language. So he has some dysarthria and he has a Russian accent. So I asked if they ever did text to speech in Russian and then put it through a translator and work backwards from there. And they hadn't tried that yet. So I think they're going to try that. They're not sure what his language ability in Russian is because apparently the English language learning won't work with him because he's in special ed. I don't know how that happens, but it seemed wrong to me.
Look up Dr. Katie Husted. She's at UW-Madison now, but she does a lot of research in dysarthria and AAC. So I don't know, I haven't really followed what she's published recently, but I know she primarily works with the CP population, but you might find just some different, research related tips.
Yeah, could you say her name again, please?
I'll just put her bio in the chat.
This is wonderful.
I know we've had a lot of success just using low-tech core boards and pacing, slowing some of those students down so that they're pointing to the word as they're saying it, and then that really increases their intelligibility at some point. And a lot, especially true maybe with more of our Spanish-speaking population, we've seen some nice growth with that. But I don't know. Again, research-wise, what Katie's been publishing recently, I just know she researches, and even looking at her bio, she has a whole course taught at UW-Madison on dysarthria and AAC. So that's pretty cool. And she's a really nice person. So even if you reached out to her, she might have some thoughts.
Thank you. I will. Great, because I think this is becoming more and more of a question that we're getting in the district.
What else is happening in people's worlds, with the exception of just trying to survive until next week? I think that's kind of how I'm feeling. It's like, okay, what do I have to do today so that today can be done so that I can get to Tuesday, which brings me closer to next week.
Yeah, I kind of woke up going, okay, you can do 4 days, and as a mantra this morning.
It's possible. Yeah. No, I think the thing I'm finding is that there are some spaces where I have almost whole classes that need AAC intervention. So I've got classes where and I gave the teacher an option. I was like, okay, do you think, well, actually the SLP in conversation with the teacher, like, do you think it's better for us to do one and then get one started and then move to the next one and then move to the next one? Or do you want us to tackle them en masse and be providing support and have 3 kids doing trials at once? And they want the 3 kids doing trials all at the same time, which makes more sense to me. But I, knowing the history and the teacher, like, didn't want to be the one that made that decision, wanted them to chime in and think, oh, I think this would work better to do it this way. Because it's a lot of mindset shift and all those things all at once. And yeah, but doing 3 or 4 trials in a classroom at the same time. It's overwhelming for me to think about, much less our staff.
Yeah, I have a couple classrooms that are doing that.
And what have you found that has worked best in terms of ways to go about that?
Well, my system is different. So we're prescriptive on the first 2 devices to trial. So it gets them, and then I send out a curriculum for their morning circles that shows them how to embed core words into math and reading.
Okay.
And literacy in the morning circles, and then we're able to do more in that way, so it's easier for them. But I also stress a lot that the big thing is that they're going to be modeling, that the kids are not to necessarily expect the kids to be doing anything but observing and watching, or even that, responding. And I usually come in and try to do a training at the beginning, talking about the philosophy of what we're doing, why we're doing it, talking about the importance of communication and presumed competency and the helplessness. And I send them videos, etc. And check in on them. But the classrooms that have done it have liked doing it because it's easier when they're all starting with the same device. And it doesn't mean that all the students end up with whatever that device is, but they all begin on the same device. Some kids stay there, some kids move to the second device, and then some kids we have to go into a stronger feature match.
Mhm.
But giving them kind of prescriptive implementation tools was one of the most helpful things.
What does that process look like for you, Alyssa?
I had the hardest time hearing you. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. It's like you cut off. Could you say that again, please?
She was just asking me what the process looked like for me, like what the process looked like for us in our district. I'm guessing, yes, yeah. So this is one where the first student that came to me on an AT screening request. Like they filled out a Google form because they thought, we've been doing some speech therapy, language therapy. We think they need a voice output device. We're not sure what to try. It came to me. And in being in the classroom observing for that one student, the SLP commented to me, hey, really, I'd love to see both of the other students that are currently in this class attending in person. Like they probably need something too. So I said to them, let's go ahead and put a screening request in for all three of them. Let's see what we might need. And then we needed to have that separate conversation with the teacher because, you know, like I said, I wanted it to be teacher led and teacher driven in that regard in terms of the timing. Like, were we going to try things with all three kids? Absolutely. But I know where our teachers as a whole are right now, just from a mental health perspective. I did not want to be the one that walked in and made a determination. We have to do trials with all three right now. I think that would be asking for, even in the best circumstances with an amazing teacher, which we do have, like it would be asking a lot if that was an external demand I placed on the situation. So from that first observation, I had kind of been starting down the road thinking about for this one student what I would want to do, and then had the SLP and the teacher together put the request in for the other two students, which kind of starts the process. And for us, we do have kind of a tier 1 core board process that we have a poster, we have a version of Proloco Touch Chat and Cough Drop and Seaboard that all are the same core layout on the front page. Beyond that, the organization is very similar to the rest of what those devices look like, but we have versions of all of them that are our core vocabulary setup that we would just be doing that same model without expectation, where the spaces then across the day that we could implement and support, you know, in wanting them to, I kind of combine a couple of different processes and basically in the very beginning say, let's pick 3 times during the day. We really want to target the use. You know, one of them I want to be academic, one of them I want them to be social or some kind of peer interaction, and the other I want it to be around something that's super highly motivating for the kiddo. And when we define it like that with the 3 times, even if the 3 times in this situation are very different for those 3 students, it doesn't seem overwhelming to the teacher or staff. Like 3 times a day, I can make sure that device is available and we're using it for math or, you know, for a social activity or something. It just seems it sounds and it feels more manageable than we need to use this device all day, every day. Now, naturally, what happens is they start having it available more and more and more as they get comfortable with it. But in that starting period, it's like, okay, let's pick these 2 or 3 times that are really that we can zero in on and make sure that your staff is making sure the device is available, that we're modeling, that we're using it. And then the goal is that it grows over there from there. And all 3 of these kids will probably be students that we do some trials with between apps, do some feature matching, and then do an extended evaluation and trial. And we in our district, we have made a choice to partner to put in and do the Medicaid process because a lot of our students don't have access to outside providers. So some school districts say, absolutely not. We're not going to touch the Medicaid end of funding. Some school districts say, yes. We made that decision just because I do have a lot of students, like I said, for whatever reason, don't have access to private therapists and to do that process. So we do support that process if the parent is on board and wanting to utilize their Medicaid funds for a device, we will do the evaluation and the submission for that. So it was a very long-winded answer, Jennifer.
but I
that's
think that was what I was just curious about. And we probably do the same thing. So we really try to, start small, and build in those opportunities just like you did, just a few a day to try to just not overwhelm everybody, and then slowly that expands and grows. So that would have been my recommendation, but it sounds like you're doing that piece of things as well. And then we try to build in the data collection into just those more routine things where it's maybe a little bit more structured, and you're not just trying to get track spontaneous, that spontaneous novel utterance generation as much, but just more of that data within a controlled environment or setting. So
yeah, and we intentionally chose, I tend to shy away from Proloquo, and partly because a lot of our EBA therapists in the area use Proloquo, and our students are used to using it and think of it as the way that I manned. Like that's how I get things. And so we will either use a completely different page set user on Proloquo, or we tend to shift to touch chat with word power and or cough drop, because it helps us a little bit from a data end too, because we can connect one to realize and one has its own data. And while we want our teachers and staff to take data too, it just kind of releases them from having to be so focused on the data element. But we do have students that we use Proloquo with too, and we just have to or Proloquo to go with, and we have to try to work data collection in a meaningful way. I don't want to ever make a decision about what app based on which is easier to collect data. So I try to try the broad, and we do have kids that are using TD Snap too. I wish their data collection was a little bit more robust, but that's what we do. And if you haven't seen Seaboard, I use Seaboard with our teachers, because we have our same core page up, and they have it up just as a tab in their Chrome and have access to it to model with our same kind of core homepage, and then some fringe available as well.
Yes, the only other thing that I do is try to schedule in some regular meetings to get feedback on how things are going, so that, we can start to address maybe some of the barriers that are occurring before that implementation piece is just becomes overwhelming or dropped. So I think especially in the beginning, really setting up some times right from the beginning, outset of trialing, let's meet, even if it's just for 20 minutes, after school once a week for the first few weeks. That seems to really help get things off on the right foot when we've got multiple students in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, and it's probably just a psychological challenge on my end. It's not like I'm not running trials for 3 different students in other places in other schools. It's the combination of them being in one classroom and it being the majority of the classroom right now, trying to make sure that I'm accounting for all the variables that go into it, and making a good choice, knowing it's November, and knowing that our teachers and our staff are super overwhelmed, our kids are super feeling the crazy, and trying to kind of also be like, and we want you to use a new tool. We want you to manage something new. So
I like how you have it set up though, where one would be like an academic task, one would be a social task, and one would be something highly motivated, because I think what we struggle with sometimes is where AAC becomes work, and we're just focusing on these not very highly motivating tasks, and then we see behaviors or the iPad thrown or whatever,
and they say it's not working, and
it's not working,
yeah.
When it's like, well, that student isn't internally motivated in order to communicate, because they're seeing the device as work. And so when you can build in some of those social experiences and not just requesting crackers at snack time or, whatever it may be, but really them starting to see the purpose of it for communication. I think that's where you start to get that buy-in, and when you start to see the student reaching for it more. So I talk a lot about that, developing that intrinsic motivation for that student to communicate, and really focusing on some of those things. And sometimes that means following the student's lead and, letting them get off task a little bit and doing things that might just be more motivating to them to get that to develop.
Yeah. It kind of came out of this combination of writing activity-based objectives through like environmental communication training, like that angle of things. And then also just pulling what's worked from across the board. It's like, let's do a motivational interest survey. Like we found out things from mom and dad that we were like, I had no idea he likes fill in the blank. Like I can buy train activities, like I can make train activities. Let's roll down that road and use his super high interest. Because then I think they get the point quicker, like, hey, this really gets me what I want. And then we can build out that communication skill. Or at least that's the goal.
And I think that's why SLPs that do a lot of pull-out therapy, they can do the fun activities in their speech and language room. They can do the bubbles, Kelly. They can play the games. But then I think our teachers struggle more because they're doing the less preferred activities that are more centered around academic learning. And so, that's again where we start to work on, how can we make this activity highly engaging, building in some of those UDL lesson planning so that our students can maybe participate and count the Elmos if they're practicing their counting or whatever it is that they're interested in versus, just counting the dots in a 10 frame. I think, that again helps to build that intrinsic motivation when we're considering, the lessons that we're teaching and how to make those a little bit more interesting for students to communicate within.
Because I don't want to do things that aren't motivating to me. So, I mean, why would we expect any different from a kid who is struggling to be out in the world and get his needs met? Like, if we don't make it fun and exciting at whatever level or interest that they've got, like, why would they care about communicating? I don't. And it's way more fun for us as interventionists too. Like, I want to play games and have fun too. So if their interest level,
but I think that's where teachers get overwhelmed because they've got a whole class of students, and I can't, you always hear that, well, I only have so much time to individualize and all of that. But I think sometimes that's where paras and grouping students and doing more center-based things versus teaching to the whole group can come into play. So.
Absolutely. Well, look at that. It became 102 just like that. And we didn't need Mike
I
in his
just got
question
called to
cards.
lunch.
Go. That's an important thing. Yes, go, Kelly. Bye. But yeah, so we made it through another week and had a